we occupied the harbor and released our mountaineers so that they could get any Norwegian resistance. But the Norwegian didn't really resist because they were not sure were we the English or were we the Germans. And so they were hesitant, and we had an easy way to occupy Narvik and all the military outposts in the environment. There was no bloodshed and no casualty at all.
In just one day, the Germans have accomplished all their military objectives. Whatever Norwegian resistance there is sabotaged by collaborators. Communications between units are disrupted, and all countermeasures against the invading Germans fail. Former Defense Minister Vidkun Quisling has made a secret pact with the Germans to allow them easy entry. From this time on, the name Quisling becomes synonymous with traitor. On April 11th, 2 days after the German occupation of Norway, a British invasion force belatedly sets out to sea.
The British plans are really almost entirely improvised. Units are taken from everywhere. Troops are frequently not told where they're going. Even their company and regimental commanders do not know exactly where they're going. Many ships are poorly loaded, so that the things you need most, like radios, would be at the bottom of the hold, and material you need less would be more accessible. When the British respond, they put force structures together like you glue toothpicks to make a sculpture, and with no more intrinsic strength. The ships they use are the ones that are available at the time. And the Royal Navy at this stage is very badly overstretched. When you talk about British strategy in Norway, about the only thing they could think of to do was stop the Germans wherever they were. The British, in other words, were reacting to the German initiatives, and the Germans were on the ground and able to move faster.
April 13th, 1940, a British strike force heads into the German-held Norwegian port of Narvik for the first major face-off of the war.
The English came with destroyers because they had all their forces outside prepared for that occupation of northern Norway. Most of our destroyers were in the harbor. Some of them were not. My destroyer was not there either. And the English fired blindly into the harbor, sinking 3 of our destroyers and sunk them. And they also sunk 14 merchant ships of different nationalities. We in the fjord, which we are about an hour away from it, heard that gunfire in the morning. We speeded in the direction of that gunfire and fell the English in the flank. And they were surprised because they didn't expect us. Then the next day, the English came with aircraft carrier and a battleship, several cruisers, and they finished us up because the cruiser gun, they could reach us. They kept out of reach from our smaller destroyer guns. So we were sunk about a mile out of the shoreline. When the order came from the skipper to abandon ship, we jumped into the water. I swam to one of the rafts, but that was overcrowded. Was later on anyway caught by the English, taken prisoners, and I tried to reach the shore.
The British counterattack at Narvik is, in narrow tactical terms, a great success. They sink almost half of the German Navy's destroyers at the loss of only 3 of their own, but the problem is the Germans are still holding Narvik. When British troops began landing at various points of the Norwegian coast, the main impression offered to the soldiers and the junior officers was one of confusion. On the whole, The British were lacking transport, they were lacking winter clothes, they were lacking the kind of foodstuffs you need to keep going in Arctic areas and in rough country. And from the various ports, these British units are sent forward with about the only mission being find the Germans, fight them, and defeat them. The average British column had almost no ability to maneuver in Norway's mountains.
The Germans rush reinforcements into southern Norway. Meanwhile, British troops land unopposed in the central part of the country. On April 18th, a German division leaves from Oslo, heading north to join up with forces holding Trondheim.
The mountaineers were all scattered around, and they formed a defense line to prevent the English from capturing Narvik. And they did a marvelous job. We knew that we had only to do that for 2-3 days, we thought, because the German army came through all of Norway to Narvik. And it was said that they would be there in 3 days, maybe 4 days. But it took them 2 weeks, because there are no roads up there. And even up there where we were, there was not the road.
While the German army is penetrating more deeply into Norway, the traitor Quisling is removed from his governmental position and replaced. The new governing council immediately declares war on Germany. There are Norwegian troops resisting the Germans, but outnumbered and outgunned, they are unable to halt the enemy advance.
Within a predictable period of time, German attack planes and light bombers would be bombing and strafing roads, and it was very difficult to get off the road. There was nowhere to run to in this mountainous coastal area. So you develop a situation in which just about everybody has a stiff neck from looking skyward and looking to the rear.
Within 5 days, Germans have joined their 2 invading armies in Oslo and Trondheim. All of central and southern Norway is now under German control. The Germans flex their military might and take British prisoners of war.
I was captured at Forberg by the Germans. From there I came to Littlehammer, and we had a supper, consisted of brown bread, gorgonzola, wine, which the Germans gave to us, cigarettes, and hot meal each day, and getting on fairly decent. And I hope the war will soon be over and we'll all be going back home.
It's a long, long way to Tipperary.
On May 27th, an Allied force moves by sea for a direct assault on Narvik.
As the campaign progresses, the British are primarily concerned with reconquering and holding Narvik and preventing a complete German victory. As the central sector falls more and more under German control, Narvik is seen by the British and French as the key to their successful completion of the campaign.
To take Narvik from the rear is impossible because of the mountains. We don't even bother to put up a defense line from that direction. Our mountaineers always choose a higher position, so they will be above when the enemy approaches. The whole population has left Narvik because of the British shelling the town. They all went to their ski huts in the mountains. They know we won't give up easily. Whatever the English want, they will have to get by fighting their way through.
British put together an expeditionary corps, and the main thing, they have to get our landing craft. The attack on Narvik is the first time that the British use modern landing craft, because the British understand that, and the French understand as well, that it's going to have to be an opposed landing, and you can't do this in an improvised fashion.
The Germans in the hills around Narvik are commanded by a mountain troops officer who uses the rugged terrain for cover. He doesn't want to give the British Navy any targets. But the British will not continue to hold Narvik. With Allied armies retreating from the Germans in France, orders are issued for an immediate withdrawal from Norway.
Within a few days, it becomes obvious that Narvik is now a sideshow of a sideshow, and it is pointless to continue the campaign. So the French and British withdraw, and the ordinary British express themselves in words more colorful than polite. Many of his superior officers aren't very happy as well with this either.
The Luftwaffe renews its air attacks as the troops are loaded aboard ships.
Germans, well, their destroyers are all gone, and their air transports are overstretched. And the German general pulls out a large handkerchief, mops his brow, and offers thanks.